Hello, hello, hello. A very warm welcome to Africa Rise with Susan West. It's another beautiful Sunday, and I, as usual, have been looking forward to seeing you again. And as you join this broadcast, remember to create watch parties. Share this broadcast, create watch parties, invite your friends, family, your community, stakeholders to join this broadcast. And of course, as we do it, remember to send in your comments and your questions if you have any. And if you are joining us from YouTube or from my page, I will be able to see your comments. But if you do join us from the rest of the other watch parties, which I cannot see, I might not be able to see your comments or respond to them. So please remember that today's broadcast is about, we're going to have, first of all, we're going to have Dr. Isreal Nonyerem Davidson. And we're going to be talking about who did this to us, Africa, to free itself. Yes, as we slowly join this broadcast, remember to do the needful. Create watch parties, invite your friends, and also remember to like and follow us on Facebook. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Okay, so in a very short while, I will be bringing on screen our guest for today. But I wanted to play a short clip. But it's not going to happen because we were unable to upload it to the system. Okay, I can see Dr. Isreal Nonyerem Davidson is waiting in the wings, and I will be bringing him up shortly. I hope you had a good week, and I do wish you, hope that your week begins splendid. Okay. Welcome, Dr. Isreal.
Thank you, Susan, for having me. It's a pleasure being here.
Right. So today's discussion is going to be about who did this to us. That is something I captured from one of your videos that I saw, and Africa freeing itself. So without taking too much of your time, I want us to go straight into you're not a professor, you're a doctor, of course, but as someone who have all the information to do with the history of Africa with Nigeria, we are looking forward to be educated today on who did this to us and how Africa can free itself. So please begin by talking to us from that premise.
Thanks, Susan, for this opportunity. Listen, what I do, I'm in education industry, and the great thing about being either a lecturer or a teacher is that it gives you the opportunity to explore the world, through reading, interacting with professionals, and teaching students. You are the younger generation. My generation, we were brought up to believe that particular races are superior. And any product that comes from their country is superior. The language itself, the way to prove that you're educated is that you have to speak the language of that particular race. And so when I had the opportunity of joining academia in an advanced country like United Kingdom about 20 years ago. I've been in this for about 20 years. I was very curious, very, very curious. First of all, there was that nervousness and say, look, can I do this? And then eventually you find out that you can. And then the next thing then is opens an opportunity for one to begin to investigate consciously or unconsciously. Look, I'm a chartered accountant. I hold PhD in the budgetary control system. So it has nothing to do with studying races and all that. But when you're teaching, and you have my background, you are very conscious. If you're teaching a mixture of students, you observe your race, you observe other races. And then suddenly I had the opportunity to start teaching across the world, from China to Russia to Singapore. And these are different race, different countries. And it gave me also the opportunity to interact with their own professionals. And I began to see the differences in educational systems. I began to see differences in students and their performance. And after several years, I drew a very powerful conclusion that Africans are not inferior to any race. We are not inferior. To be honest, a lot of African students outperform their other, counterparts. I do get more of Nigerian students. I think probably because Nigeria is more economically buoyant than a number of other countries, African countries. And these students perform exceptionally well. Now, I also have contacts with fellow professionals in the United States and other parts of Europe. You begin to look at the statistics of, their performance in their various professions. I looked at some of the CNN reports when they looked at the performance of African expatriates in the United States, particularly Nigerians, and you see us performing exceptionally well. And then you look at the history, you look at some of the top schools from Harvard to Cambridge and all that, and you see Africans emerging as some of the best. Now, the question then all of a sudden is, why is Africa not doing as well? And that was where I began to think. And one day I came across an article. I can't remember exactly who wrote it, but the quote there troubled me. It was about the former president of South Africa, William Botha. And he was of this was in 1988, and he was of the view that Africans are not intelligent enough to be able to handle a government and to be able to govern a society. Susan, that knocked me cold. Why did it knock me cold? The reason is simple. Although it came from a racist, I don't want to believe him. However, I look back into our history since 1960s, looking at Nigeria particularly. Nigeria is endowed with enormous resources. And then in terms of human resources, probably in Africa, we're probably one of the top. And so the question then is, how come such a country hasn't been able to live up to expectations? Could it be that William Botha is right? That troubled me. But of course, I managed to rescue myself because I looked at my performance with my university. This is an all-white institution. Of course, we have some other internationals there. I looked at my performance as they send me across the world, and it's been brilliant. And then you have my colleagues in medicine, a number of, if you look at NHS in United Kingdom, You have Africans leading that organization, performing extremely well. So I could not agree with Botha's, thesis. However, there is a point there. The question then is, if you don't agree with him, and the evidence is there that Africans governments are not performing as well as they should.
Yes.
And then if you take the case of Nigeria, which is endowed with resources, huge resources, compared to Singapore, for example, what is the problem? Could it be leadership? Could it be what else? And I think that was where I decided to record that very particular short video to send it around the world, to begin to get Africans in diaspora and around the world to ponder over this question and see whether we can find an answer.
Right. Right. If a man of your caliber with the level of education you've had and the kind of exposure you've had, if someone like you can be affected to even doubt yourself or, as to thinking if the former president of South Africa might have been right, you can then understand the reason why Africa and Africans suffer in the way they think of themselves, in the way they see themselves. I'll give you an instance. Just a few hours ago, I was having a discussion with my teenage son. And one of the things we talked about was what went on in school on Friday. And he said they were doing, I can't remember what subject it was, but they were talking about, first they had treated something to do with Islam, and then they've done Christianity, and then it came to race and trying to find out. They were trying to analyze the race that is more violent or prone to criminality, and the teacher had said that this was something to do with the United States of America, by the way. And the teacher had stated that African Americans are more prone to be criminals, to be violent. And so I asked him, I said, and what was your response? Because I have so much confidence in him, and he said, we weren't given the opportunity to talk, but if we did have a chance to talk, then I will then educate the teacher on why he has that perception. But how many of us on the continent of Africa, how many young people, how many people can stand and be that confident to want to educate their teacher, but according to the perspective that the teacher has, and had made this claim that African Americans, as far as I'm concerned, when they say that, they mean the entire Black race, So, for instance, you have had an opportunity to run for the presidency in Nigeria.
Yes.
What do you think you would have done differently if you had an opportunity, if you had emerged a winner?
That's $1 million question. Let me tell you two things. I'll narrow it down only to two things. Susan, the first thing I would do is to make sure that people I'm going to recruit to run various organs of government are better qualified than myself. They have to be better qualified.
Right.
And when I say better qualified, it's not only in terms of academic qualification, but in terms of experience and evidence of achievement in their life. That is the first thing. And then I would then hand them over responsibility of, running their various departments. The second thing I was going to do is to concentrate on security. Then, of course, I will first of all want to understand why Nigerian armed forces, who performed extremely well, if you look back to the history of Congo and all that, we were there. General Agui Ronsi was exceptionally so good that he was in charge of, some of those operations. And then bring it to the modern day. If you cast your mind back to Liberia and Sierra Leone, Nigerian armed forces performed exceptionally well and were able to bring peace.
Right.
And then the question is, how come that Boko Haram, which is not a national army, but a terrorist group, not supported by Nigerians as a whole, they're not fighting for a particular region. It's not like the Nigerian Biafra War or so. How come Nigerian army is taking so long to silence this group?
Right.
And so I will concentrate my effort into, first of all, finding out why. Part of my background as a doctorate is research. And so I've always believed that if you investigate, thoroughly, you will come out with the reason. And then my priority will be to make sure that the country is stable so that businessmen and women will do what they do very well. So therefore, like I said, the first one is to get people better qualified than I, better experienced. So I'm confident that they'll be able to run all the departments, but I'm educated enough, experienced enough to be able to supervise their work, to be able to discuss with them, to be able to understand what they're doing, whether in terms of statistics, whether in terms of management. I should be able to ask the right questions, make the right decisions, but surround myself, not on the basis of tribe. Susan, let me tell you, if the best mind at that moment all comes from the North, I will recruit them. If the best mind in the country all come from the South, I will recruit them, irrespective of whatever anybody says. And then I was going to make sure that security is brought under control. So that if you look at the southern part, I mean, Nigeria is so gifted. Nigeria is a gifted nation. If you look at the South, whether you're looking at West or East, there are some specialisms that come, with those regions. The Igbos, for example, they're very, very powerful businessmen, but they need security, both in terms of economic security as well as normal traveling and property security. If you look up north, we rely on the north for agriculture. There has to be security for farmers to be able to do their normal things. If you look at the west, it's a highly commercial area. So my view is that if I can get security under control, government is not going to interfere it's not the job of government to run business. And I will allow the business people to do their business with the right condition, put in place. That was my plan then.
Right. We're going to come back to this one. I'm just going to take a little read. The reason we're going to come back to this, I was quite comfortable listening to you as someone from the Igbo speaking part of Nigeria saying that if the best minds come from the north, you would not have any problem hiring them. The reason why it's a little bit uncomfortable listening to you say that, because in today's Nigeria, the reality is so that the person in the position of authority taking care of the entire Nigeria as a president is from the north and seem to be doing the same thing, but coming from a tribal or ethnocentric, it's not something that people believe that the best minds are coming from there. So one of the first question I'll ask you before I take a read is, do you think, though, that Nigeria has matured to the point that you would want to run a government like that? That is a question, but I'll take a quick read because there's something interesting here from Helen D. Helen D is watching from the United States of America, and she says, we need to start teaching Africans about emotional intelligence because educational intelligence is not helping Africa. Having said that, can you please react to the question?
I think, yes, I do agree with that. I've always said that there's a very big difference between schooling and education. I mean, it is very clear. There's a very big difference. Unfortunately, the education system that our colonial masters left us with, even up to this moment, it hasn't changed that much. It's designed to produce office workers. That's what it's designed to do. You're taught to memorize things, memorize theories, but the ability to think, and to be able to recognize the impact that you make in society absolutely is not there.
Right.
And so it is important. I think let me tell you, I have an organization. There's an organization that emerged out of the success of this video you're referring to. And so Africans across the world approach me and say, look, we need an organization to bring us together because we recognize that Africa has the capacity to reclaim, her place in the world. But the only thing there is the mindset of our people. We have not yet properly indoctrinated to think positively and to respect ourselves. So this organization, we are still putting it in together. The priority there is to focus on reprogramming the mindset of Africa so that we move away from schooling to education. So that anybody who is, whether you are in power, whatever position you are, you understand that your responsibility is not only to yourself, but to the wider society. You understand that the fact that you're rich today, if you have very poor people around you, you are poor yourself. And you recognize that the role of education is to give you the capacity to influence change in society. And I think that's absolutely where I do agree with Helen, that is to be taught. Now, like I said, let me go back to the first question you did ask me. The reason why I said I will look for people who are better qualified than myself, it means that the person who will be running the Ministry of Education is experienced. He understands the challenges that faces Africa. He needs to look at the education system and redesign it in a way that will make sure that our children are educated, not just schooling. So I do agree with that very statement.
Right. I did ask though that, do you think Nigeria has matured to that point where if you decide to fill up the positions in your government from a particular ethnic group, that would be seen as that it will work? Do you think?
Susan, I think so. I think so. What is mature? Nigeria is almost 60 years old, So when are we going to expect it? When it's 120? Now, the reality is, look, we culturally, you see, one of the mistakes we've made is to ignore our culture.
Right.
We come from a very rich cultural heritage. If you look at the success of the Igbos, it's not because they attend schools and they perform well. Is the foundation, the culture of excellence, the culture of you work hard, you have to earn your keep and all those things. And so for me, I believe that what Nigeria is looking for is result. I think that, initially, for example, assuming that the majority of my cabinet members are from the North, I'm sure, people in the South, particularly where I come from, they will tell me that I've missed the road. Okay. However, I think they will have that notion, for the first probably 6 months. And once they begin to see these individuals perform, it's like the national football. I don't think anybody cares, who is part of the football team. Maybe sometimes they will until the football match starts. The only time they remember that, the constitution of the football team was probably tribally influenced when, eventually you didn't score goals.
Yeah.
I believe that Nigeria is looking for a result. They're looking for leadership. And that the initial criticism will, it will fly away once the desired result, start coming in.
Right. I'll take another read from Steven Solution says, here we go again. Great chat. Indoku Henderson says, happy watching Dr. Isreal Davidson. I just had to acknowledge those people. And Her Empress Ebiere Joseph Akonwo, please fix your sound, because the sound here is good at the moment. Thank you. So just a quick reminder, create watch parties, invite your friends, make sure that you're not just watching here by yourself, invite your friends, so create watch parties. I wanted to say though, I feel that after, traveling, a lot of Nigerians are all around the world. We do a lot of traveling, but traveling on holidays as tourists or spending a short while sometimes is not as effective as actually living and working in these foreign lands. Because sometimes I ask myself, why these politicians, why these leaders have the opportunity to go abroad, yet they come back and still can make any impact. They can make, their mindset does not change. Then I relocated it to the United Kingdom. I started living here and I began to understand certain things. Until you live in these places, there are many things that will not dawn on you. So I'm thinking, do you think that, especially in Nigeria, do you think that every Nigerian who goes through the school system and has the opportunity to go through university, this is just my thinking, instead of, because we're at a point where Africa's problem is mindset, most of Africa's problem is mindset, because you can't get across to people who are not at the same, who are not thinking and reasoning the way they should think and reason. So do you think though that we should have a program, for instance, in Nigeria, after your university, you're allowed to spend 1 year serving the country as a youth service member? I'm thinking, could we not come up with a program that allows everyone who graduates from university to go abroad for a year, mandatory 1 year, and you must return? Because I begin to find out that when we as Africans live and work abroad, we suddenly are awoken. We suddenly are awoken to the consciousness that we are not inferior to white people. We're suddenly awoken to the consciousness that we are capable, even more capable in many occasions, as our white counterparts or people from other places. So what do you think would be the best way forward in trying to change mindsets and reorientating African people?
Yeah, very good question, Susan. Like I said, you see, I told you there's an organization we just put together, UNIPATH, and the mandate of this organization is to come up with an idea on how to reprogram, how to go about reprogramming the mindset of our nation, of Africa generally. It's an African thing. It's not just Nigeria.
Yes.
Now, we haven't yet come up with a program because it's still in the formation stage. But you did mention, you made a suggestion, a very expensive one. But let me tell you, we don't need to send everybody abroad. Let me tell you, one of the biggest challenges that we have in Africa is the fact that meritocracy is not given priority. And so if you give priority to merit in such a way that graduates who made first class and those who are exceptionally good, some of them are going to earn scholarship genuinely, some of them are going to earn scholarship. If you make it on competitive basis, then all the good ones are likely to gain scholarship and travel abroad.
Right.
And because the level of competition is good there, then it will reflect in terms of the quality of governance. And so that will make it possible that those sent abroad will come back, very fast. Susan, in the 70s, Nigerians never waited even for their results before they head back home.
Right.
It used to be those who were writing various examinations. Once they finish their exam, they never wait for results, and then they bought their flight back home to go, because the country was good, the economy was good, employment opportunities were there, and recruitment was based on merit. Right. So I don't think we really need to get everybody to travel down there. I think the merit thing is what is required. Let me look at Kigali. I mean that's Rwanda. I mean, Rwanda is a typical example. Rwanda is a very small country that went through, very, very challenging times. But today, Rwanda, everybody talks about Rwanda. They didn't have to send everybody to America or or Europe, but the leadership, prioritized the leadership prioritized excellence. And so they created that culture of working hard. And the reality is, when people who are capable are given that opportunity, not only do they produce the right result, which is reflected in the strength of the economy, but also they become role models. They become role models, to the society. And so gradually, it's not going to be overnight. And what you find out is that we don't have to all behave like Europeans and Americans. We come from a very unique culture, and I'm proud. I've not changed. I've been to Europe for quite a long time, but I have never changed in terms of the way I see things. I've never changed in terms of my association with my brothers back home, and that has helped me in many ways to ride the deafening wave and challenging wave of racism, which comes from time to time. It hasn't been all that smooth sailing. And so we have a very rich culture that can help us to redefine who we are, be proud of who we are. But I think what is lacking is that our confidence is being affected because people with the right degree and qualification are not given the opportunity to perform. But rather, people tend to gain various positions based on who you know, and I think that that's not right.
Right. Haven't said, because you said that, I'm just going to mention they have elections in Nigeria, in Edo State, and that the politics in Nigeria has always been about godfatherism, where a powerful person who's held position doesn't want to go, and then he keeps trying to bring people who are going to be loyal to him. But today, the people in Edo State, is it today, spoke. They spoke loud and clear. We saw videos of buying voters' cards. We saw videos of them paying people to vote for a certain party, and still it was ineffective because these people took the monies and still voted into. Well, there hasn't been an official announcement as to who the winner is, but they are. We have evidence, video evidence, and so on and so forth of who did well during these elections. This is where Nigeria wants to get to. This is where Africa wants to get to. A politics without godfatherism, a politics where it shouldn't even be about party at this point, because we're not yet at that point where it's about philosophical movement when it comes to parties. But I'm going to ask you, how is Africa, how is Nigeria going to get to the point where people like you are able to get voted into political offices, regardless of your tribe, your religion, or because you don't sound a certain way? For some people, you're sounding too posh. For some people, he's not Nigerian enough. How are we going to free ourselves from how are we going to free ourselves in this regard?
Well, look, how we're going to free ourselves. Remember that colonization hasn't yet left us. We keep blaming our leaders. They are the product of the colonial era. I don't know whether you have read this book by John Jenkins. It's called The New Confession of an Economic Hitman. This is an economist who was recruited by America and others to advise presidents of foreign countries. I'm talking about developing countries like Nigeria. Now, the difference here, the reason why he calls himself a hitman, is that although he comes with the world of economists, actually, that advice is meant to benefit multinationals and European and American governments.
Right.
And so when he gives an advice and the head of state refuses to take that advice, then the assassin comes in and assassinates the head of state. It is very plain, it's there. And then he mentioned Gaddafi as one of the victims of that very exercise. So you see, our leaders, even though we are blaming them, I think they are aware of some of these economic hitmen. You know, there's no doubt about it. But the major thing here is that our leaders, in as much as we blame them, the fact remains that the populace is not united, and so leadership without the full support of the grassroots is a very wobbly one. And one of the areas that I think we need to work hard on is to begin to transform the mindset of the electorate so that they can stand firm behind those who are capable. That's what the challenge is. I truly believe that that Nigerians are educated enough to recognize which of the leaders is likely to perform. I think they do. Now, but the politicians have used a technique perfected by Stalin of Russia. I don't know whether you've come across it, whereby what he did was, you know, to grab a chicken, you know, pull out the feather very, very harshly, stab it a little bit, and begin to throw corn. And wherever he moved, the chicken followed. And that's what has happened. Our leaders have learned that. And so they've deliberately created poverty at a level that during election, what people are looking for is survival, even if it's just for 3 days. So whatever you're able to give them at that moment, they take it. They see it as a benefit, realizing that few days after election, you know, they will not earn anything. I think that mentality has to change. It has to change with proper education from an NGO that has nothing to do with the government. But also, that's part of where we are coming in, this organization we are putting together. Right. And if we can begin early enough, we don't have to wait till 2023, for example. If we can begin to speak, you know, to our people. Remember that my view that nature has already helped us. When I say nature here, I'm referring to God. I mean, I'm not sure whether it is God or Satan. I'm not sure. This current administration, I don't know. To be honest, I'm not sure which one of them. What I'm trying to say here is that the Buhari's administration has taught Nigerians a lesson. That's my view. And so now they know the difference between Goodluck Jonathan and then Buhari, whom they thought was a savior. Now they know the difference between previous administrations, whether it's military or civilian. And now they've suffered enough, and COVID-19 eventually came in and created more problems, exposed them to the reality, not only of the economic, but the health situation of the country. It is my view now that the ground is ripe for NGOs with the right tools and techniques to begin to minister onto our citizens, from professionals to students to market women, and then to prepare them for the future. And I think if we can do that, Nigerians are clever enough to make their choice.
Absolutely. Sensitizing the people is the way
That's
to go.
the right word, yes.
Educating them, informing them, because an ill-informed society is a major problem on the African continent, because information is key. That brings me to say, to bringing you to the happenings at the African Union. Recently, when you made mention about you almost came across like you're excusing the leaders because they're also victims of colonialism.
Yeah.
And I want to say, for instance, if I have any sort of integrity, if I had honor, and I was given and I have a Pan-African spirit to make sure that any position that I'm holding on behalf of African people, on behalf of any country that I represent, that I put the people first. Therefore, if for any reason there are powers that be that try to frustrate whatever forward movement I try to make, the honorable thing would be to speak up. If I cannot speak up, I will resign. I will say, I am sorry you have voted me into this position, but for so and so reason, I am unable to perform as much as I would like. And for that reason, I take a bow. That would be an honorable thing to do. But we have leaders who allow themselves to be used by foreign powers, i.e. France. Look at what's happening at the African Union. The AUC, the African Union, have a situation where they have had a chairman who have been there for 4 years, who nobody seemed to like, even his staff at the African Union headquarters in Ethiopia. No one wants him there. Yet this man has somehow manipulated his way to come on unopposed. And now there is some kind of petition out there for Africans to wake up to sign this petition to make sure that he does not run unopposed, because there have been evidence to show that this person is there because France wants him to be there. How do we get ourselves as Africans out of a situation like this?
Susan, that's a very powerful question. Now, that can take another 3 hours, to discuss that part alone. But I'll just, give it some shot here. Now, the credibility of any organization depends on how it sources the funding. Funding is the key. Funding. Now, I'm not sure whether you are aware that African Union and ECOWAS, their members hardly pay their dues. They don't pay their dues. Therefore, whenever they come up with some of these flamboyant projects, they go back to knock at the door of Europe, China, and others. Now, when you knock at the door of any of these countries and they give you those millions, well, if they pay for those services, then they have to control who sits there. It's a natural thing. That's part of investment decisions. They're using their taxpayers' money to look after Africans, and therefore they need to make sure then they put somebody they believe can protect their interest. So the first thing there is to make sure that Africans feed themselves. They have to sacrifice. If you look at the statistics of the kind of amount of money that leaves Africa looted every year, it's very shameful then that African Union and ECOWAS cannot find just some few millions to be able to undertake their own projects. Now, I'm not trying to defend the leaders. I'm not trying to defend them at all. The point I was making earlier on is that leadership is not just a responsibility of one person. When you know that you have people behind you, in other words, if you fall, there are people who will, fall with you. If you are succeeding, there are people who are going to, not just your tribe's people. Then it encourages the leader to take all the necessary risks. For example, Susan, I mean, I'm a very big critic of Buhari's government, but I'm also very willing to accept that I was one of those people who welcomed his election. I looked up to Buhari, that Buhari was going to be a magician, that he was a no-nonsense man. So when he turned to be a different Buhari, of course, I had to change my views. But if you look at his administration, I think it would be unfair of me to suggest that there are no good leaders. There are. But the problem then is they recognize that they have families. Now, if they take the right decision and then the administration goes against them, believe you me, no Nigerian will stand behind them. No Nigerian will stand behind them. And so that fear is what makes it difficult for even good leaders either to come forward or even when they have the opportunity for them to take the necessary risks. So that goes back to this question of whether of the African Union or whatever the leadership there. If France, I don't think France can openly interfere. Now, the problem here is that many of the African leaders, after all, African Union is made up of about 55 or 54, 55, countries. And so, and the current head represents only one country. So it's very difficult to believe that France is able to, subdue everyone else. So there could be some other underlying factors that you and we don't know. And so I think the leaders of Africa should begin to think in the interest of Africa. If they know that France is part of the problem, they need to find out how to be able to get rid of France. And I believe getting rid of France will mean African governments financing their operations. I think they should.
I'm not a politician. Not that I shy away from it now. In those days I was, but not anymore, because we've all come to the realization that us running away from politics is how we got ourselves somehow in this situation where only the people who are incapable or people who are so corrupt are in positions of authority. There was a video. Was it a video or something I watched? I'll tell you something though. When France has something on Africa, recently, not so long ago, the former AU ambassador to the United States of America, Dr. Arikana Chayombrikwayo, made a revelation. This is something that had been going on for decades and decades, and she finally discovered what was going on with Francophone countries having to deposit their monies in the Bank of France, and then if they need to withdraw that money, France will decide how much they give to them and at a very high interest rate. When such a revelation comes out, everyone will think that she will be commended and be supported, that she has the like you mentioned. I don't think it's only a Nigerian thing, it's an African thing. You would think that everybody will rally around her and say, this is a person we want. If we had a president of Africa, she should be the president of Africa, but no. Now, this is why I think we're burdened with corrupt and ineffective leadership that we seem to struggle to do away with. It's because the West seem to impose on us people who have dirty laundry. I say so because recently I read about the reason why Nnamdi Azikiwe was manipulated. He could have been a lot more effective, but there was something they made him do, taking a loan that had to be a secret. But these people made him take the loan, and the moment he had that behind him, they used him to shut him down. And that, I think, is a major problem why Africa seems to struggle, because we have people who these people always have something to say. If you don't do as we say, we're going to make this public. If we don't do as we say, we're going to do this. We're going to do that. In your opinion, what will be the way for us to get this crop of leaders out of the way?
Well, you've hit the nail on the head. A lot of our leaders, they have a gun pointed to their heads. One of such guns is that the West, they know how corrupt many of them are. I think I mentioned earlier on that AU is made up of about 54, 55 countries. And most of these countries are not francophone. So how come that France is able to, have such a grip, or China? I'm sure the next thing to talk about China.
Right.
The reason is that France and European and American governments, they understand what our leaders do, and they encourage them to do that.
Right.
From time to time, they remind them of such things. A couple of years ago, I'm not sure exactly how true this is. I think the Nigerian parliament decided to flex some muscle against the Americans. I think there was an issue. I'm not exactly. And all American government did was to instruct the ambassador in Abuja to remind the lawmakers that their visas will be affected. That was all.
That was all.
The next day, they changed their mind completely. So that tells you, why should visa be an issue? The reason is not just because of the visa, the investment they have in United States, their houses, their children, all those things will be affected by just this simple thing called visa. So every decision they are going to make, they simply remind them. They don't need to assassinate them, to be honest. It's simply to remind them of those things. And the question then is, how do we go about that? Well, if we follow the normal procedure, which is the democratic process,
yes,
unfortunately, it's very, very difficult to remove African politicians nowadays. Not even nowadays. I think that's been the case through the ballot box.
Yes.
And that's a very big problem. And hence, if you look at the 1966 military coup in Nigeria, one of the reasons given by Major Nzogwo was that it was getting difficult to get Nigerian politicians out of office through the ballot box.
Right.
And so the military had to come in. So nobody likes the military very often. But I'm one of those people who believe that when politicians refuse and the nation is under lock and key, and there's no progress, no tangible progress, and anarchy is about to take place, that military should be able to exercise some of their oath, however they do that, and then to return back to the barracks. You've seen what happened in Mali. What happened in Mali? I'm not trying to justify that. It's just that our African politicians, if you give them this leeway of democracy, they abuse it. There's no doubt about that. The only thing they fear is the military power. Unfortunately, as well, our military leaders have never, done that well. In fact, the problem that Nigeria is in at the moment is because of our military leaders, who now believe that they have monopoly of presidency, even when they are outside the military barracks. So in terms of how, to get this ball out, the normal proper way would be to educate our citizens and then, get them to exercise their right as they should. But unfortunately, the government, with the brutality of the military and the police force, and of course, the right of the president to appoint the INEC chairman is a very big problem. So the first thing would be to appoint an independent. It shouldn't be, the electoral offices should be run by somebody not appointed by the government itself. It must be an independent person, quite experienced. And then, of course, the organization and every other thing should be under the control of the main parliament itself, and the Senate and others. Hopefully, if there are saints in the Senate, they'll be able to pass the necessary laws and then appoint the necessary people who will be able to, operate the voting system as it should. And most importantly, to pass a law to make sure that the military and the police officers, that they remain in their barracks. Right. And that those who are to supervise such a thing, that they're not appointed by the government itself. I don't know. I mean, these are just a little bit of something that I'm just being, I was just thinking through right at this time.
Right. So I'll take a short read. Ryan D says, Dr. Davidson, here is Ryan Davidson. Ryan Davidson? Is that your relative? Okay.
I've never heard of Ram before, but he's welcome to be. He's welcome to be, yes.
Right. Okay. So he says the Nigerian leadership challenge is that of long-standing good governance. Even if 2023 produces the credible and qualified president, the perpetual enemies of Nigerians are always on a siege to mess things up for their personal greed. The passion to building a civilized government for the people is an illusion to them. That is the core challenge of the Nigerian people. And then I have Washington Stanley, who says, only with a new ruler do you realize the value of the old. Edo people upheld democracy because circumstances are the rulers of the weak, also the instruments of the wise. And this is a question from Ndoku Henderson. He says, Doctor, is lack of homogeneity a factor why Africa is underdeveloped? And if yes, how can that be redressed?
Well, look, I don't think it's a lack of homogeneity. No, I don't think it is. Everything is back to mindset. There's no doubt everything is back to mindset. You know what the colonial masters have done? They did for themselves is to make sure that we remain, not united. If you look at the problems of many countries, is the fact that that colonial mentality has been injected in people. First of all, by the way, why should we have multi-party governance? I don't know whether people have ever thought about that. In African culture, we use two words, my brother and my sister, mama and papa. The uncle, niece, and all those things. These things were invented by Europeans, and these are part of dividing us. The Igbos have only one, two words, my brother, my sister, my mother, my father.
Right.
Now, why should we have multi-party, which then again brings in some element of division. So the major issue there is that one, the lack of unity, which has been injected. We need to be able to solve that. The second thing is the governance systems operate in Africa. They are alien. They are completely alien. Look at Nigeria. Nigeria is operating an American presidential system. I still don't believe we understand what it means. And so the way they interpret it is that Mr. President uses very big jet, and so he needs more than one jet. And then there is a White House in America. So we must have one Blue House or Aso Rock in wherever it is. So everything is copy, and all those kind of things. They do not understand the history of White House in the United States. They do not understand the code of conduct that governs anybody that sits in that holy office. And so you look at senators, they have no understanding of what a senator does, other than to feel that the Senate and the presidential office is like a casino. That is the place where you just simply go wine money to come down, to fall off. And within a short time, you become a millionaire or billionaire without a factory, without employing anyone, without any strategy, without no office. And so it is because we're operating a system we don't understand. So let us, it's not, if anybody tells you it's because of lack of homogeneity, no, that person probably is an enemy of Africa. It is the fact that we have not had the courage, including those in the academia. We have a lot of professors in Africa, but professing nothing. It surprises me that we have Department of Politics from Johannesburg to Cairo to whatever you call them, and they have not had this common sense to come together one day and say, let us think of a governance system that is more suited to Africa. And I mean, I cannot understand that. So what I'm trying to point here is that there are many, many factors that are working against us.
Right. I'm going to take another read. We're running out of time, but I'll take another read. Glory Grace Shanan says, the quest for power with its encompassing wealth is sought after beyond the zeal to serve, defend, and develop. Sad to say, it's typical of us, not just in Nigeria, but in other African countries too. Idonge Sit Upong says, until we organize our electoral systems, of course, not without the independence of judiciary, Nigeria's electoral system is bedeviled by myriads of challenges, ranging from vote snatching, stuffing, hijacking, how outright votes. Sorry, what happened here? It seemed to want to disappear. Give me a moment. Yes, outright vote stealing, vote inflation, destruction, and cancellation, coupled with a long history of failure of the judiciary, which may erode people's confidence in the electoral process as a fallback. What's your reaction?
Well, the point they have made, look, all the points they are making here, they're quite valid. They're very, very valid points. But what I want to say here is that in addition to blaming our leaders and other things, we also need to blame the electorates. When the Arab world decided and said, we've had enough, they protested and they brought governments down. No government can withstand, continuous resistance from the population. So if you are not sacrificing, if you are not resisting, if you are not making enough noise,
right,
then stop blaming all the leaders. You can blame them as much as you like, because once leaders realize that there's no opposition from the grassroots, they do whatever they like. Let's take the case of what is happening in Edo State. Let's say the election is rigged, and then the government decides to, approve it. And then the people of Edo gathered together and said, enough is enough. Today we will not accept it. And everybody, no work, we wouldn't do anything. Believe you me, the government cannot do much. They will have to, irrespective of what. I think that power to protest and then to push government, to change their mind, we've never exercised it. So we shouldn't complain too much.
Right. And I'll take another read quickly. Seth Agwe, who is watching from YouTube, he says, is multi-party democracy a bane rather than a catalyst to Africa's growth and development?
If you ask multi-party democracy, who introduced it? I think I said that a little. This is European, kind of European. It's a European system. We don't even understand what it is. It was Mugabe who said, I think Mugabe was so much, against this multi-party. He said, we are brothers. Who is opposing who? What should we oppose each other? Now, I don't want to blame. Listen, the idea behind multi-party democracy is that one should put the other in check. Unfortunately, in Africa, politicians, see it as an opportunity to undermine the current government and get them out of power. Now, the bad news is this. Statistics has shown that opposition parties, when they come into power in Africa, they perform worse than the government they're actually replacing. Go and do your research. One evidence is in Nigeria before you at the moment. We say that Goodluck Jonathan was the worst devil. Some people said Goodluck was a bad luck. I'm not sure what kind of luck they are seeing with Buhari at the moment. So multi-party democracy will never be a solution. The only thing there, a single party again will not be a solution. What we need to do is to get those in the academia, the political science gurus, to sit down, look at African culture. We met from kings and queens, design a political system that is more appropriate for Africa.
Right. We are a cultural people. We have a heritage that is totally different from the West.
Yes.
And so when we try to force on the style of the West, it seems to bring up its ugly heads because we don't understand their culture.
Yes,
and so please take the last few minutes and talk to us in your own words. Just tell us, Africa, how to free ourselves.
Well, let me just use some statistics. Look, if you, Susan, if you go and take the map of the world and you look at where they position Africa, you would think that Africa is the smallest continent. We need to begin to inform Africans the truth about who they are.
Absolutely.
Look, Africa, now let me say this. Africa is the largest continent on Mother Earth. Africa is so big that you can carry the United States, put into Africa, it will swallow it. You go to China, take the whole of China, uproot it, it will swallow it. And then you go to Europe, take the whole of Europe, and it will swallow it. Statistically, Africa is about 30.4 million kilometers, square kilometers, 30. China, if you look at the map, China is projected so China is only 9 million.
Can you imagine that?
Yes, 9 million, square kilometers.
Square kilometers.
Then Europe is 10 kilometers, 10 million square kilometers. And then, of course, United States is 9, point something. So if you add Europe plus China plus everything, Africa will swallow them. So we need to begin to tell Africans that they're one of the greatest, people gifted on this earth. And so once we begin to pump the truth onto Africans and we know who we are, then I believe that the future is going to be wonderful. I think we need to tell ourselves the truth. We are the greatest race on Mother Planet and gifted of everything. And so we need to be proud of ourselves.
Absolutely. Dr. Isreal Nonyerem Davidson says, we are the greatest. We are. When we awaken to that consciousness of who we are, then we begin to win.
Yes.
Because until we begin to disabuse our minds, for instance, from what he said, Africa is the largest. The other 3 continents or even 4 continents can sit in it. But over the years, they have painted it so small on the map of the world that even the most educated people probably only just realized. So I just want to say a big thank you, Dr. Isreal. Thank you for coming on Africa Rise with Susan West. We do appreciate you. Thank you for giving us your time.
Thank you for having me. I've enjoyed being here.
Thank you. And I will look forward to seeing what the organization you're coming up with has to do. We can collaborate. Anything to project and promote Africa, we're up for it here on Africa Rise.
Excellent. Well, we're going to need your help, actually, both in terms of publicity and others. So I'll send all the necessary information to you. But thank you for the opportunity you've given me to be able to speak to your audience. It's a welcome development. Thank you.
All right, guys, you heard it for yourself. Today we heard from an intellectual. He's told us many things, and I do hope that whatever you picked and walk away with, it is that something that makes you feel a little more superior, or think of yourself a little more superior, that you're all that, regardless of your skin tone, regardless of what passport you carry, regardless, and that we are reminded that the power lies with the people. The power lies with the people. If we come together and put forces together, we can make and bring about the change that Africa and Nigeria so desires. So, you know what? I cannot acknowledge everyone today because I have to go through this system and that system to see all your names. But thank you so very much for joining us on today's broadcast. And as usual on Africa Rise, before I close though, if you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel, please do. And when you do subscribe, touch the bell button, because that's when you're alerted that we're live. Okay? And like and follow us on Facebook. Everyone who's joined us from everywhere around Africa, Kenya, Tanzania, South Africa, Nigeria, Ghana, the United States of America, and the United Kingdom. Thank you so very much. God bless you all. Until we see again next week, in our usual manner, I will be announcing who the next guest for this coming Sunday is going to be. to take care of yourself. Bye-bye.